bold journalism,
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
exposing lawlessness,
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological,
finding the truth,
and use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
What's going on, Thought Criminals? Welcome to Frontlines. I'm your host, Drew Hernandez. I'm here with the great Congressman Matt Gaetz. Matt, I have a lot of questions for you regarding the Twitter files and what Elon Musk is doing particularly, because I've been wondering, what is the retaliation going to be from the authoritarians and the leftists and the psychos in D.C.? Are you hearing any chatter? Are they pissed off at Elon? Obviously they are, but are you hearing anything behind the scenes where, I mean, they went after a sitting U.S. president, they tried to deplatform him, and D.C. tried to impeach President Trump over lies, continuous lies, so I can only imagine what the hell they're going to do with Elon in the next 2 years.
Well, it's interesting because it's the very pattern recognition from the Russia hoax and the Wuhan virus that you now see in the Twitter files. First, if you said it's actually Hillary colluding with the Russians, not Trump, you were a conspiracy theorist. Then, that was Russian disinformation.
Yep.
And then, well, it was happening, but you should be glad it was happening, right? And now we see with these Twitter files, especially Twitter file 6, it's like, oh, well, if you complained about being shadow banned as a conservative, that was just a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And then it was, oh, no. All the work they were doing was to go after the Russian bots and hate speech. And now they're saying, you know what, we actually need a society where the federal government, the national security state, is using leverage and influence over a private company to try to control what people see and thus how they think and how they behave. So I'm concerned about all of it, but frankly, the left-wing woke-topians in Silicon Valley shadow banning people is less concerning than the federal government setting up weekly meetings through the FBI to try to push really state media into the bloodstream of the American political discussion. That is so unlawful, and that ought to be the focus of the House Judiciary Committee.
Is it going to be? What
It
can we
should.
see upcoming in the next year?
Honestly, when you look at all we have to investigate, you sort of feel like a mosquito at a nudist colony. It's such a target-rich environment. I mean, right now on the border with Title 42 going away, you're going to have tens of thousands of people coming here illegally every day. I don't know how you don't put that first, but there are colleagues of mine who are saying maybe the first witness in the House Judiciary Committee should be Elon Musk.
Yes.
You know, someone who says he voted for Biden, but then bought a crime scene.
Yes.
And that crime scene needs to be exposed. And actually, I think what we've seen so far is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the intermingling of the national security state and big tech. And like, everybody's focused on Twitter right now, but we know the same shit's going on at Meta, at Google. It's just that Elon didn't buy those companies.
Yes.
And it didn't like used to be a feature of the past. It's happening right now.
Yep.
And that's why I think it ought to be a central focus.
Matt, let me ask you this. Has anyone reached out to Elon? Do you think Elon is doing this because he wants to come down to D.C. and have a conversation about this stuff? Is there anything going on where that's potentially in the works?
Yeah, without getting too into that, I'll just say I believe that Elon Musk is actually wanting to vindicate the truth. I think that is part of the intrinsic value of his Twitter purchase is to free the truth, right? How does the saying go? You don't have to protect the truth. It's like a lion. You just need to let it out of the cage and it'll defend itself. And so that may be the phase of this we are in, but I would not expect Elon to be too resistant. I think he's a person who wants to tell this story.
Absolutely, and I think I'll tell you one thing, Matt. The viewers, the people I see on social media, they want to see some judgment. They want to see some justice. They want to see these people like Yoel Roth that were behind the scenes working with the FBI, working with the feds. What's interesting to me too as well is I think what I personally want to know is how is it that the FBI is working with the former trust and safety head of Twitter, Yoel Roth, to go after political opponents, but they did nothing about the child pornography, did nothing about the child exploitation. How much does the FBI even know about the child pornography on Twitter as well? I want to know that stuff too.
Yeah, we may have to look at the full breadth of the FBI's involvement, negligence, all the above. I think we're going to have to look into. But frankly, none of that's going to happen if we have weak leadership. And that's one of the main reasons I'm here at this conference, to encourage the patriotic activists in our movement to reach out to their Republican representatives and tell them not to vote for Kevin McCarthy, because we should not have someone who's been widely referred to as big tech's best friend in control of whether or not we're issuing subpoenas. Because I've been to this dance before. I remember in 2017 where we had all the pep rallies about unified control of the government, and we were going to fight and we were going to back Trump. And then the moment the deep state turned on Trump, you had people like Paul Ryan and Trey Gowdy standing in the way of oversight. And when that was going on, Kevin McCarthy wasn't nowhere. He was the sitting freaking majority leader and sat on his hands and did nothing. So pardon me for like not buying this recent reflex on the part of McCarthy to act all tough. I've watched this guy for years, and I've watched him bail on the fighters and refuse to enforce the subpoenas that get the answers that you're saying the listeners want.
Matt, we appreciate your boldness when it comes to McCarthy and it comes to these, in my opinion, rhinos, these people that just put on political theater in order to get the support of the public. Is that what we're seeing right now, where they just flip a switch, they appear to be America first or appear to be pro-America, but behind the scenes they're just a bunch of hypocrites? Is that what we're seeing right now?
Well, I would say we're seeing that, but you cannot understate the extent to which it is bound together with the covenant of the delivery of lobbyist and special interest money. I mean, Kevin McCarthy is the LeBron James of lobbyist fundraising.
Wow.
This guy raised $500 million. And so a bunch of colleagues are saying, well, heck, he went out there and raised all that money. We ought to vote for him. And to me, it's not a qualifier. It ought to be a disqualifier that you're completely owned by the very uniparty interests that have screwed regular Americans for generations. And it's no fun winning when all you're competing for is who gets to be the lead valet to K Street and the lobby corps. And I see so much of that in Kevin McCarthy, and I would prefer someone like Jim Jordan, an actual fighter, someone who will lead on these investigations and cast a vision that will draw people into our movement. If Kevin McCarthy were on this stage today, he'd probably get booed off of it. And we cannot have a leader like that and expect that we're going to actually prevail on these fights, because the criticism of some of my Republican colleagues, even going all the way back to Benghazi, is, well, you all know how to start a fight, but you don't know how to end one, because these people never really get held accountable. And if the whole deal is just professional wrestling, which is what Kevin McCarthy wants to orchestrate, then our fellow Americans will be disappointed. I want better than that, and I'm willing to stand on that principle, because I think it's what our countrymen deserve.
Absolutely, and I know the American people want that. The America First crowd wants that. Matt, I have one final question for you. Here we are, end of 2022, going into 2023, and then 2024. I think things are going to get crazy. What do you see on the horizon? What are your predictions for America?
We got to get these elections under control. I mean, we are here in Maricopa County, and my message to folks here is you don't have to live this way. I remember when Florida was a laughingstock for the country, but then we put the transparency laws in where if they're trying to cheat on election day, you can actually catch them, and you can get court orders on that day to reshape behavior, rather than throwing our hands in the air and then filing lawsuits that are not going to be successful afterwards. So I think that the craziness that you describe is the craziness that we often see through our voting process, and we can fix that in a way that builds confidence among all Americans of all political persuasions.
Absolutely. Real change comes from real leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Matt Gaetz. I am joined by the great Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Lauren, such an honor to meet you and have you here. You've come out of a pretty crazy race, which is pretty intense and gnarly. But one of the themes that I've been talking about all year on my show Frontlines is this clear attack on females and women, right? Because anytime a woman that is actually articulate, successful, and has the ability to actually, be a great name in society in America, if she's not the right she gets destroyed. Yes. How has your experience been the past few years with just that?
Well, there was a great preparedness for this journey, because I was supposed to be a leftist. I was supposed to be a Democrat. I was raised under their failed policies, and I escaped from them. And the left hates that so much. They hate that I saw the light, that I broke free of the cycle of poverty that they tried to entrap so many millions of Americans into. And so I understand it. I get it. And the media doesn't define me. The left doesn't define me. Their attacks don't define me. I was bought and purchased by my Lord Jesus.
Yes.
And that is what defines me. I am not achieving for victory. I am fighting from a place of victory that's already been purchased for me. And that just emboldens me to speak the truth, to speak against the lies, the disinformation, the misinformation that the federal government itself has been putting out to deceive Americans and to really just bog them down and keep them in this cycle of despair.
Yes, I mean, and they redefine what a woman is.
Yeah,
right?
they redefine anything they don't
They
like.
redefine science,
Yes.
definitions, anything to fit a narrative. But what particularly pisses me off the most about what these people are doing is you have an entire culture of females in the United States of America that are not going to be given a chance because we have a political ideology in this country that will destroy them if they find themselves conservative.
Right.
So it should be a good thing that we have Lauren Boeberts that are progressing in society, really killing it, really having a voice and paving the road for women to go even further and further into the future in America. But no, they hate that because you're a conservative. They hate that because you're
Right.
America first. How is this going to damage the future generations of American young women in the future?
Well, this is why I'm standing up, because I don't want it to damage the future of women in our country, future generations, and not just women, men too. Men have been demonized, and it's only okay to be a man now if you identify as a woman, whatever that is, right? And so there's so much that we have to stand for right now, or we are going to lose our country completely. The left doesn't want to talk about their policies because their policies fail Americans.
Yes.
They fail our country. They failed at the southern border. They failed with our economy. They failed in our health system. They failed with science. And they don't want to talk about these things. They want to make up false narratives and focus on that. And they have the majority of the media to help them create that narrative and to help them perpetuate
Yes.
that. And so we are here to actually take a stand for truth. And it's okay if we're just a remnant right now,
Yes.
because we are going to prevail. And there are so many more that are for us than against us.
Yes.
And so I'm looking forward to that future. It's going to be great. We already have the majority in the House. I wish we had it in the Senate, but we have the opportunity right now to show Americans what true leadership looks like,
Yes.
to show how to lead with strength and grace, to show responsible policies that will lift everyone and enable everyone to live out their very best lives. So that's what I'm looking forward to in the next 2 years. The Senate in 2024 looks very promising for Republicans. We're darn well need to take back the White House, and hopefully then we can turn it around once and for all. But until then, we have to show that we have the policies that are going to get us on track to do that.
Absolutely. You bring up a remnant. God has used
Yeah.
remnants, and he always will
Yes.
use remnants. As long as there's one soul
Yes.
willing to be obedient to him, that could change the course of human history.
Yes.
And I think that is exactly where we're at. If he could just use one, he could use 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, you name it. I wanted to ask you, we've been seeing this groomer phenomenon develop the past. I've been saying this a lot. I really feel like 2022, as a culture, we crossed the line. We really
Yeah.
did, because they're trying to normalize grooming,
Yes.
normalizing the mutilization of child's genitals. It's insanity.
It is.
Where are we going, Congresswoman? Where are we going legislatively? Is there talk in D.C. about really going head-to-head against these psychos that want to groom children and mutilate their genitals? Because this is going to literally castrate
Right.
physically
It
an
is.
entire generation.
Yes, yes. And, this is something that I'm happy that we have the majority in Congress, in the House of Representatives, to actually go after. Even in the minority, I question Secretary Becerra, Department of Health and Human Services, and question him about taxpayer funding of the mutilization of our children, castrating our children chemically, and ripping apart their bodies. This is absolutely absurd. If you saw, there was a recent hearing where a woman from Colorado said parents don't have the rights to step in and have any opinion on transgender surgery for 12-year-olds. This is
Unreal.
absolutely absurd. You know what an adult chooses to do with their own life? Let them do it. I've never been against that. But when you interfere in our children's way of thinking and their ideology and convince them that this is right, that this is the answer, that is grooming, that is a problem, and that needs to stop. And we have to take the lead in this next Congress to make sure that the federal government is not a participant in that in any way, that tax dollars are not going to that. And then we put a stop to it, just like Governor DeSantis did. America's governor put a stop to this transgender nonsense with minors. This is a problem, and we have to stop it.
This woke, stupid, satanic ideology is so backwards, where when it comes to a woman deciding to murder her baby in the womb, it's my body, my choice. You can't tell me what to do with my body or my baby. If I want to kill my baby, I could do it if I want to because it's my body. But if you actually have a born child and that child identifies as whatever and you don't accept it, that's going to be problematic for you, and we're going to take your child away. That's where we're going.
Yes.
That's where we are.
Yes.
As a congresswoman, I got your take, but as a mother,
yeah,
what is your take on this?
Gosh, I have a lot of different takes as a mother. I mean, when it comes to the abortion stance, I have 4 boys, and one of my biggest fears has always been my boys won't have the right to defend their child's life. That is absolutely terrifying for me as a mother, to think that my son would not have a say if his child lived or died. And so I think that that's something that needs to be addressed. We've seen videos in the past go viral of young men standing at the door of abortion clinics begging, pleading
Screaming
for their child's life that was stripped from them completely. But you know, what about the 80% of Americans who believe that full-term abortion is wrong, that this has gone too far? Why can't we take that and hone in on that as Republicans and say, you know what, this is too much. Let's start finding some common ground. Democrats do it all the time, and look how successful they are at inching away at things that we believe in. Take our Second Amendment rights, for instance. They inch away every chance that they get. Why can't we hone in and capture the hearts and the minds and the souls of these 80% of Americans that believe full-term abortion is too much? But you know, also as a mom, I mean, it just pains me to see children chemically castrated, to see children who are confused. I mean, middle schoolers, young high schoolers, who knew what they were doing in middle school or high school? And they're completely making life-altering decisions, many of whom end up regretting it. And it's so unfortunate. And so this is something we absolutely have to do. But you also mentioned the risk of having your children taken from you. This is also something that I brought up in my questioning with Secretary Becerra. There was a document provided by DHS and that said, if you as a parent do not provide gender-affirming care to your child, you will be at threat of losing them, having them stripped from your custody. This is a problem. This is un-American, and we have to do everything that we can to continue to stand up, to not grow weary, and press on and persevere in this fight. You know, I think that this midterm elections, it really showed that a lot of people said, oh, you know what, Republicans got it in the bag. They got this. The left's policies are so bad. They've gone so far. They've crossed the Rubicon. There's no way the Democrats are going to win. And many Republicans stayed home because of that. Yeah. Many people who otherwise would have voted if they thought that it was closer than it was, stayed home. So we have to make sure that we show up and we are in this fight. We cannot relent one little bit.
Could not have said it any better myself. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, thank you for joining me on the Front Lines. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the Front Lines. I'll see you guys on the next one.
We must play offense. Game on.
You expect the rest of the world to live in La La Land. We're not.
We've been saying these things from day one.
Our solemn vow to you, be good, be brief, be gone.
You might find yourself changing your opinion on things you've never even thought twice about. That really sets America apart.
You are not ready for season 2. This is Reloaded.
My life tale and my truth has been to fight socialism.
Are you familiar with structural racism?
Yeah, it's a myth.